with a report claiming CM Punk's return to WWE is likely, and more. This is Wrestling Hub. My name is John, and you're watching the Wrestling Report for October 22nd. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Wrestling Hub Official and follow us on Twitter at Wrestling_Hub. When speaking to Fightful, NXT star Cora Jade recalled a pitch to creative when she found out she would be involved in the WarGames match. I watched NXT as a fan, and seeing the previous WarGames matches, I always knew I wanted to be a part of it. I was an extra in 2019 when they did it in Chicago, so that was crazy to be there and doing all that kind of stuff. WarGames was nuts. I went into it very nervous, but I was one of the few women to actually do it, so I knew going into it that I had to make it memorable. If I never got to do it again, at least I did it this once. And I knew as soon as I found out I was in WarGames, I was like, I'm going off the cage. Maybe it's because I'm young and I'm like, yeah, I'll do it all. I did the death match and I love hardcore stuff like that. I knew I had to make a moment out of it, and I wanted to be remembered. There are moments I look back to in wrestling that are my favorite moments, and I have to step back and take myself out of it and think about, I want to do this, and it's going to be a moment, and a moment that will hopefully be there forever, and it's someone's favorite moment. I remember when Cora Jade did that in WarGames. I wanted to have a moment that will be in history and will be mine forever. Giving details on his recent training session with Logan Paul ahead of his match against Roman Reigns, Shawn Michaels said on the Halloween Havoc media call, "Working with him was really fun. He's a bright kid. I didn't know him clearly, whatever. I'm a square. Obviously, I know of him. I saw what he did at Mania. Clearly, you can see he's committed. You can see what he did with the boxing. When he jumps into something, he goes hard. I was curious to see what he put into it. I agreed to do it because I was curious. He's a nice kid. Clearly, he's bright. He does work very hard. So he comes in at a certain spot that our young talent isn't going to come in at. You have to put the cart before the horse. So you maybe just train him for what he's going to do for that one match." I said to him yesterday that while we're doing this, we have to go back to teach him some of those principles that will help link him together. Because of his popularity, they started him at 5 years down the road, but he's still in the first 6-month training wide. If we can go back and teach him some of the fundamentals, that will help him learn at another level how to put those other pieces together. I found him to be, a very bright kid, nice guy. He has a great crew around him. Being the cool kid in class was nice yesterday. Recalling a job offer he turned down from Vince McMahon, photographer George Napolitano said on Busted Open Radio, "Vince knew he was taking over the country and we had a meeting. He called me in. He said, I'm going to take over the wrestling world. So I'm going to be the only wrestling people are going to see. And he says, I would like you to run my magazine." He offered me a job before they did anything. But I was married, I had 2 children, and I didn't want to leave New York to go to Stamford, Connecticut, not knowing what I was getting into. And I said, I enjoy what I'm doing, traveling, taking pictures all over. He said, well, that might end when I take over everything. With him being accused of simply hating AEW when criticizing many of their talent being reckless in the ring and getting injured, Dutch Mantell recently responded on Twitter writing, "Why is it that if anything is said about AEW, it's automatically judged to be negative and with an agenda behind it? I merely stated that some of AEW's talent was reckless, yet to some AEW fans, it's conspiracy city. I've already been branded as an AEW-hater." On Stories with Briscoe and Bradshaw, WWE Hall of Famer Ricky the Dragon Steamboat revealed the origin of his name. "When I came down to Florida in 1976, I walked into the office and Eddie Graham said, 'I remember you, kid. When you were in high school, you wrestled Mike.' He says, 'Rick Blood is a great wrestling name, but that's for heels. Blood, that's for heels,' he said. 'I'd like to call you Ricky Steamboat.' We had a guy here in the late 60s and through the early 70s that campaigned here. His name was Sammy Steamboat. Steamboat. He was from Hawaii, and I'm going to start putting your name out there, but I'm not going to call you his son. I'm going to start listing you as a nephew. You're the nephew of Sammy Steamboat. I'm in the ring, I'm in the corner. They're doing old school announcing in the middle of the ring with the mic, and he announces, ladies and gentlemen, we have a substitute this evening, taking the place of Dick Blood. Give it up for the nephew of the great Sammy Steamboat, Ricky Steamboat. And the crowd jumped out of the seats. I went like, holy moly, what the? Prior to that, whenever they announced Dick Blood, when I worked with Vern up in Minneapolis, I'd get beaten in 2 or 3 minutes, and I'd get a couple of claps out of the house. But then when I went to Florida, just because of the name change, the fans, they must have loved Sammy dearly because they jumped out of their seats. Speaking on Busted Open Radio, WWE Hall of Famer DDP noted how he never once had a match facing off against The Rock, as he said this about having any regrets. I wouldn't change a thing. Not even the way I came into WWE. Wasn't my favorite, but coming in there and not getting what I wanted, People's Champion versus People's Champion, it's why I've been so successful following that, The biggest lesson I've learned is you can't be afraid to walk away from the table when you know you've got something. Recalling the tag team match between the Nexus and Team Cena from SummerSlam 2010, Heath Slater told Adrian Hernandez on 11:40 a.m. Las Vegas, SummerSlam was amazing, main eventing and everything. Getting in the ring with Bret Hart was fantastic, but SummerSlam should have went differently because we had WWE by the throat, but they never let us clinch it, you know what I mean? They never let it be like, holy crap, these guys are legit taking over. We were there, we had it, but then Superman had to go in there and change everything. We were winning though. We were definitely winning. We got there and they said we were up. Me, Gabriel, and Wade were the last 3 in the ring. And the next thing I know, an hour before the pay-per-view starts, it all goes to crap. And we're all like, whoa, what? What's happening now? They had to switch it all. John Cena changing Big Nexus finish is the spin. With it announced that AEW had signed Willow Nightingale, it seems this was a popular decision backstage, as Sean Ross Sapp reported. AEW revealed officially that Willow had signed full-time with the company on the October 21st episode of Rampage. Fightful had learned recently that Willow had signed with the company in some capacity, but hadn't confirmed if it was tiered or full-time, but had it confirmed when she'd gained merch on the AEW shop. When Willow finished up with MLW, they were under the impression it was to sign a full-time deal with another company. Fightful had also been told that as of this summer, indie promotions didn't seem to have to clear her bookings with AEW directly. Regardless, the reaction internally to Willow's signing was very positive. Following SmackDown Women's Champion of the brand Ronda Rousey would take on Natalya in a dark match, here's a clip of the highlights. Touching on her career-ending injury which she received from Sasha Banks during a live event match for WWE, AEW star Saraya noted on Talk is Jericho, "My neck just friggin' snapped back like I was in a car crash. And then I was like paralyzed for a couple of minutes, which is the most terrifying thing. I just remember laying there and then I didn't cry, but I knew instantly I was just like, this is it, like I'm done, like I'm toast, right? I look over and I see Sasha, Bailey, and there's Mickie James and everyone. They were just crying. I look at Mandy and Sonya and they were crying." With it reported by the Wrestling Observer that AEW is currently in talks to buy out CM Punk's contract, it's been said by Fightful that Punk is more likely than ever to return to WWE with Triple H in charge. We spoke with WWE sources who wouldn't comment in an official capacity, but On Background provided us with some insight. They said that they didn't think that Vince McMahon would have brought CM Punk in, especially after Brawl Out, and noted that Fox had pushed for it to happen before AEW signed him. However, the line of thinking that was presented to us under the Triple H regime is that the right situation, right money, and right creative can leave the door open for anything within reason. One said Triple H wants to be a success and make compelling programming more than anything. CM Punk back in WWE is compelling programming, but I can't see it being a full-time deal like what he has in AEW because of exactly what happened in AEW. That's even if he has interest. If he gets a buyout, he may not need to work again. With rumors of CM Punk potentially having his AEW contract bought out, Chris Jericho liked this tweet which reads, "Imagine that you're CM Punk. You've had one of the most triumphant comebacks ever in the history of wrestling. You've been promoted as the star you never got to be in WWE, and within a year you completely ostracize yourself, becoming so toxic that you're not worth having around." In some good news for thirsty fans, AEW star Tay Melo has announced that she is now officially on OnlyFans, with her providing a link in her bio on her Instagram. And this was your Pro Wrestling News Update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.